Thank you, and happy Thursday, Your Excellency, and dear friends of knowledge and intellectual capital. I'm very honored and grateful to be here, and it's my first visit to Thailand, so therefore I have a kind of a very important question for all of you to help me to answer. And I started to ask Deputy Minister about this and some of the friends, what is the intellectual capital of Thailand? So if you want to write it down, and then during the coffee break you can give me the answer, what is the intellectual capital of Thailand? And that is related to some of the slides I'm going to show you, and I need some help to start. Perhaps we can switch there we are, very good. Because you can look into the subject area in a lot of ways. You can look into it on global and local level, like the question of IC of Thailand. You can look into it on enterprise level, on institutional level, for example, the universities. What is the intellectual capital of universities? Is it in the buildings? Is it in the classroom? Is it in the students? Or is it somewhere else? And that leads to the next level, which is the individual level. What's your own intellectual capital? So I have some friends in the room that I have asked this question, and it's very interesting to start to think about what is your individual intellectual capital, and how are you going to cultivate it? How are you going to leverage it for the future together with your people around you, the group level? So this is a little bit of some of the perspectives I'm going to share with you, and it's very easy because you can challenge most of these perspectives. And if you look at this tree, is it possible to walk this way? What is your reaction? Can you think about this approach? Or is it that the old Newtonian law of gravity says that this is impossible? Or is it that the new theory of the string theory makes it totally possible to do this? And that we are still surfing with very old thinking into the future. And that might be one of the challenges for the educational system as well, that we are teaching the old thinking rather than new thinking that we are going to live off. So therefore there is a lot of challenges in knowledge management as well as intellectual capital. And my background is, in short, coming from the city of ideas in Lund, where I once was a student and got some insights. And this is the other one where we have Professor Chu from Hong Kong Poly U as well here with us today. And I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to both be in Sweden and as well as in Asia, and especially today here in Bangkok, to learn more about this future of Asia. This is one of the awards I got. I call it my extra brain. So and this is an award I got again. And some of the other people are Gary Kasparov and Stephen Hawking, and you can see you can lift your brain, and that's why I'm talking about that as well. And recently I was referred to in this book among the 50 thinkers in the world, the most important and influential business thinkers in the world. As being more or less retired now, I think it's very interesting to see that some of the early prototyping thinking I've been doing is now going into action of today. One of the key books I wrote 10 years ago was on this. And the key word here is brain power. It's not knowledge, it's brain power. So what's your brain power? How do you nourish it? And how much of the financial resources do you devote on a national level to the brain power of the future of Thailand? Is it enough? Is it quickly enough? Or is it that you are perhaps not seeing the hidden potential in Thailand? So perhaps we need to start to look into this from a lot of different perspectives. I see, which is also in Swedish, aha. I see, and it's also short for intellectual capital. So what do you see when you look upon the map of Thailand? What do you see as the potential future for Thailand? Or is it that you have a lot of blind spots? Let's do a little quick mind test here. How many faces do you see on this slide? Gordon, how many do you see? Oh, there are more than 2, yes. So how many faces do you see looking at this tree? 6? 7? How many more? 8? The more you look at it, the more faces you will see. So it's like a brilliant, a diamond. And actually, it's easy to count to more than 12 faces. So where do you have your blind spots? Gordon, you saw immediately 2, which means that the potential 10 other faces were not visible to you. And that's the same with when you're looking upon Thailand. Do you see all the potential faces of Thailand, or is it that there are hidden assets, hidden values? So therefore we need to develop a new kind of thinking, and the new thinking could be called social intelligence. And who is in charge of social intelligence? And that goes also for corporate level as well as national level. Who is in charge of the social intelligence of the future of Thailand? And this is a subject area that we started to research and look into. In Lund, it's called the research policy at the University of Lund. It's research on research. How do you produce efficient, groundbreaking new research? And therefore we have to think out of the box, and I was very happy to learn a lot of that when I was a student in California. One of the subject approaches for this is KIBIC. In Lund we started to develop this subject area, and it's called the art and science of questioning. For example, this little simple question of what's the IC of Thailand? The other little question, where do you have your blind spots? What is the aha of today? How do you take note of the ahas of today? So KIBIC is probably one of the most intriguing subject areas for training of our staff as well as ourselves. How do we phrase questions? A good question is opening the brain. A good answer is closing the brain. A good question is opening the mind. A traditional answer is closing your mind, and you forget 80% of it within 24 hours. So within 24 hours you have only 20% of the answer staying in your mind. But the good question is actually opening the future. So that's why KIBIC is so important. You can apply it on this subject. What are the most important intangibles in your enterprise, for yourself or for the country? How much do you invest? And how do you secure that you get the most possible best effects out of your investments? So secure the future becomes very important. And to secure the future, this question about how to sustain, develop, and innovate becomes extremely important. And this slide is not in your binder because it's only 4 very simple questions. And you can have endless questions of this type. So the KIBIC is important. This is just an illustration of KIBIC. If you look at the stock market, what we start to see is that the intangible value of enterprises are growing tremendously. So during the last 25 years we can see this blue area growing. So today more than 80% is in the intangibles. If you take YouTube, that recently was sold for $1.6 billion US,